Hi everyone, welcome back to World City Studios and happy 20th anniversary to LEGO Star Wars the video game. I'm very happy to have contributed to this year's celebration with the release of Blue Clone, a diner story, which was my tribute to the LEGO Star Wars game that for many of us started it all. In case you haven't seen Blue Clone yet, definitely check it out after this video. It's also my submission for this year's Brick Filmers Guild Film Festival, and any and all support really means the world. Though aside from paying tribute to LEGO Star Wars the video game as a brick filmer, I thought it might be interesting to put together this video essay in an attempt to provide another fresh take on the game before the year is out. My hope is that by the end of this video, I'll have provided a sufficient case argument for why LEGO Star Wars the video game is an equal to, if not greater experience than LEGO Star Wars the Complete Saga. Now before I explain how I came up with this, I also want to mention that I did start a new YouTube channel over the summer called Waddly DVD with the intention to produce similar content like this, but for movies. It's an experimental channel, and I've only put out one video so far, but I certainly am interested in posting more content over there. So if you like what you see in this video, you can head over to Waddly DVD and check out my entry into the world of film analysis. Back to LEGO Star Wars the video game, I also want to mention that as I delve into this topic, I am as much of a LEGO Star Wars the video game fan as I am of LEGO Star Wars 2 the original trilogy and LEGO Star Wars the Complete Saga. All three are fantastic LEGO games, and I still enjoy playing all of them. Especially with the Complete Saga, there's a certain level of convenience to its experience because it combines all 6 episode levels and then some of the first 2 games. This is often why the Complete Saga is the most revered, and because it's also the newest of the 3 original LEGO Star Wars games, I've also noticed that this praise has generated significant criticism against the first 2 games for being generally inferior. Now, as someone who grew up with the video game and the original trilogy on PlayStation 2, it was easy for me to pick up on the little details that Traveler's Tales sacrificed to put the sum of 2 games worth of levels into one. And while it certainly started out as me simply nitpicking various elements, it was upon replaying all 3 of these games this past year that I realized how distinct each game felt to one another. It wasn't just aesthetic or graphical differences as well, though I think the more prominent changes was what first opened the door to deeper analysis. I certainly don't plan to focus entirely on aesthetic differences, but there were many that did correlate to what made each game's experience distinct from one another. And in the case of the video game, some of those unique aesthetic touches provide a greater accuracy to adapting Star Wars than the Complete Saga did. One of the most prominent examples I've noted was Padme's blaster. In LEGO Star Wars the video game, several of the Padme variants are equipped with a chrome revolver that fires green blaster bolts, whereas in the Complete Saga, these same characters are instead equipped with the larger red-tipped blasters that fire red blaster bolts. Everyone who has seen Episode 1 knows that all the Naboo characters' weapons featured in the fight scenes fire green blaster bolts, so on its own this is already a detail of color that makes LEGO Star Wars the video game much more accurate to the films it adapts in LEGO. And while it can be argued that Padme did not use a chrome revolver in the movies, the chrome revolver piece was the only smaller LEGO piece at the time to resemble her weapon from the movie. Specifically for the case of Padme, the revolver piece is also a much more accurate adaptation than the red stud-tipped megaphone blaster used by other characters in the game. As I've alluded so far, this chrome revolver is not featured in LEGO Star Wars the Complete Saga for Padme, even though Padme is the same character adapted in the same context from LEGO Star Wars the video game. Not only does she have a red-tipped blaster in the Complete Saga, but the red-tipped blaster also fires red blaster bolts instead of green ones. The difference in weapon appearance between the video game and the Complete Saga may be a minor variation between the 2 games. However, LEGO Star Wars the video game is clearly the more accurate of the 2, even if unintentional. Almost every non-Jedi hero character in the video game fires green blaster bolts from their weapons. Chewbacca and Tarful are from a planet where many Wookiee vehicle weapons, like the Ornithopter, shoot green blaster bolts, but the films never define their personal weapons' blaster color. Therefore, it's possible the developers made the non-Jedi hero weapons shoot green to differentiate the heroes from the villains when every villainous firearm user shoots red blaster bolts. While the hero characters of Rebel Trooper and Princess Leia may disprove this as they both shoot red blaster bolts, these 2 exceptions ultimately help maintain the accuracy of adapting the films, because the red blaster bolts were kept for Leia and Rebel Trooper for the sake of accuracy in the same way that the green blaster bolts were added to Padme's weapons for securing the same accuracy of her respective film appearance. Now there's one more thing I want to add to this topic because I'm aware that you can easily make an argument that Padme and the Naboo should be firing red blaster bolts given the circumstances that they are possibly using enemy weapons as seen in the movies. I don't plan to go down this rabbit hole of nitpicking only because if we were to evaluate this for every character, it doesn't change much of the fact fact that both the video game and Complete Saga are not entirely accurate down to the finest detail, but they are LEGO games after all, and to that, they are adaptations. And between these two adaptations, it's the video game that we can clearly see made the effort to include green blaster bolts at all, whereas the Complete Saga does not feature any of this, and instead, every blaster-equipped character from the Star Wars prequels shoot red blaster bolts. Now, whether the developers changed it for convenience, the change was clearly at the expense of more accurate minor details, which was initially established in LEGO Star Wars the video game. Now, so far, I've only covered aesthetics, and I'm aware this is minor, but when it comes to fans as well as those interested in playing as Padme in the game, the difference in weapon models does change the experience nonetheless, given how prominent of an element it becomes when playing through the game. More significant than a minor visual detail of weapon models are the minor narrative details that often complement the visual adaptation of our beloved Star Wars characters to LEGO. Those of you who know me best can easily guess who I'm referring to on this topic. Clone is the character we unlock after completing the first Episode 2 level, Discovery on Kamino, and like any other character, once you buy him at Dexter's Diner, you'll be able to find him roaming about the diner's hub and programmed as a hero. This means that he will take up arms against the sighting of any villain such as Count Dooku, General Grievous, or even the other clones, all of whom belong to the Episode 3 levels. The reason behind Clone's conflict with fellow clone characters such as Commander Cody, Clone Episode 3 Swamp, Clone Episode 3 Pilot, Clone Episode 3 Walker, Clone Episode 3, and Disguised Clone is entirely related to the continuity of how each of these clones' film appearances are portrayed in the game's central hub of Dexter's Diner. The hub itself is a culmination of characters who appeared across the prequel episodes, and they are all present at once. Since these characters derive from different points in the Star Wars timeline, the hub accounts for that continuity to allow the characters to behave in the context of their respective episode. There are exceptions to this, such as Anakin Skywalker Jedi Knight, who is technically the villainous Darth Vader by the time of the level Defense of Kashyyyk. However, Anakin Skywalker Jedi Knight has more of a prominent appearance as a hero in the Episode 3 levels of Battle over Coruscant and Chancellor in Peril. Theoretically, this may be why the hub portrays him as a hero, because his duration as a hero in the game is greater than the duration he spends as a villain. Opposite of Anakin in this theory is Commander Cody. Cody co-stars in the level General Grievous as a hero, but his duration as a villain in the levels Defense of Kashyyyk and Ruin of the Jedi outweighs his time as a hero. Therefore, Cody appears as a villain at Dexter's Diner. In all of Clone's cutscenes from the Episode 2 levels, he is only ever seen as a hero, and this consistency is accounted for at Dexter's Diner. Now, if there's one error of continuity in the rules of this theory, it would be the entire existence of Stormtrooper at Dexter's Diner. I only recently discovered that Stormtrooper appears to be programmed identical to Clone, meaning that the two of them are both coded as heroes in the diner parking lot and will both fight against the villain-coded Episode 3 clones. Stormtrooper unfortunately does not fit into my aforementioned theory, and if anything is a reminder that there are obvious imperfections in the first LEGO Star Wars game. However, Stormtrooper's behavior still reinforces this distinct behavior of Clone, which is unique to LEGO Star Wars the video game. Dexter's Diner is the only place in the history of the franchise to illustrate conflict between Phase 1 and Phase 2 clone troopers. The logic of this conflict is certainly debatable, however, programming Clone to take on the Episode 3 clones is both symbolic and more accurate to the films being adapted if we are to account for the potential rules of the diner's hub setup. From the prequels, the Phase 1 clones that Clone is based on never commit Order 66. There were arguably clones wearing Phase 1 armor who did participate in the Great Jedi Purge somewhere in the galaxy, though it was highly unlikely because Phase 1 armor was completely outdated by the time of 19 BBY, when Phase 2 armor had become standard. Nevertheless, the Phase 1 helmet is the face of the clone army era that allied with the Jedis, while the Phase 2 helmet is the face of betrayal. This makes seeing Clone as a villain in the central hub of LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga all the more awkward. I'm well aware that the reason his behavior was changed between the two games was most likely because it would have been awkward for players to see a villainous clone outside the diner after completing the Episode 2 levels, but before completing the Episode 3 levels. Yet, this was precisely the experience at Mos Eisley Cantina in The Complete Saga, because his status conforms to all the other clone characters without any regard for what he truly represents in Star Wars. LEGO Star Wars the video game accounts for this representation, whereas LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga does not. This is another one of many instances that the developed quality of LEGO Star Wars the video game carries a greater accuracy than LEGO Star Wars the Complete Saga when adapting Star Wars in LEGO. Now, I only intended to dive as deep as I did on these minor visual and narrative details with the example of Padme's weapon and the character of Clone. There are other minor details that could help support my case, but the more time I spent between these games, I started to see more substantial aspects related to the balance of challenge designed in each game, which also helped to distinguish the experience between the video game and the Complete Saga. LEGO Star Wars the video game requires players to complete each level a minimum of 2 times. Completing levels the first time around are always in story mode, and at least one additional playthrough is necessary in free play to collect all remaining collectible items in the level. LEGO Star Wars the Complete Saga possesses the same balance in which the same 2 playthroughs are required for 100% completion. However, a third playthrough is required to complete for a separate blue minikit challenge, and the Super Story mode also adds a required 4th playthrough of each level. While 3 of the playthroughs for each level within the Complete Saga provide different experiences based on different objectives, the 4th playthrough is the exact same experience as the first playthrough of each level. All 4 playthroughs are required to achieve 100% in the game, and thus are necessary to complete. Playing through each of the 36 levels twice in the Complete Saga is exhausting when the experience and unskippable cutscenes provide no difference in exploration of the game. Perhaps the Complete Saga's Super Story mode is then best to be completed after players have paused from playing the game. Yet, if the concept of a well-developed video game is to keep players consistently invested in the content of the game, then this Super Story mode in the Complete Saga is rather superfluous in content. If the Super Story's redundancy results in players delaying their attempts to complete it for the sake of 100%, this will also delay the completion of the game, and not by in-game entertainment factors, but rather because the in-game factors are not entertaining enough to keep players consistently invested. LEGO Star Wars the video game possesses no Super Story mode, and in the 2 playthroughs required for each level, the experience in each respective playthrough provides a unique exploration of the level. This setup is much simpler than the Complete Saga. However, the game objectives of LEGO Star Wars the video game are far more likely to consistently entertain players with ample material of its own accord. 2 of the vehicle levels featured in the video game are among the most difficult to complete for the game's intended age range. It's here that I'm obviously referring to Mos Espa Pod Race and Gunship Cavalry. LEGO Star Wars the Complete Saga redesigned both of these levels and changed the balance of difficulty by allowing players to die and respawn where they left off, rather than having to start from the beginning of each stage checkpoint following an in-game death. By changing the layout and mechanics of these 2 levels, the versions of Mos Espa Pod Race and Gunship Cavalry featured in LEGO Star Wars the video game are much more difficult than that of the revised editions in the Complete Saga. While neither version is extremely difficult for the average adult player, the increased difficulty in the video game helps to provide greater challenge for a game containing less than half the content possessed by the Complete Saga. Now, it's also important for me to note that while the Complete Saga contains the original version of the levels in its collection of bonus levels, this change in placement of where these levels exist is not the same balance from the video game. The Complete Saga does not feature these original level versions in the primary episode level lineup, and while this may be a convenience for players who are looking to unlock every next main level, that higher degree of challenge for unlocking the next level past Mos Espa Pod Race and Gunship Cavalry is effectively removed from the Complete Saga experience. In contrast, LEGO Star Wars the video game possesses this exact challenge, in which the only way to unlock the next levels is to complete the original Mos Espa Pod Race and Gunship Cavalry. With fewer challenges to complete elsewhere in the game, the original Mos Espa Pod Race and Gunship Cavalry are much more of a priority to complete, and although these may result in greater frustration for those who don't get it on the first try, eventually completing it is far more rewarding than completing it as a one-off bonus level in the Complete Saga. Completing the same original levels in the Complete Saga acquires the same gold bricks that are obtained in the completion of anything, and does not require the attention of the player with as much urgency as it did in the video game. Therefore, while the Complete Saga possesses much more content with more features than that of its predecessors, the simplicity of the video game is bolstered by that increased difficulty, which creates its own balanced experience that feels equally, if not more, rewarding to accomplish. Throughout this last topic so far, I've alluded to a certain level of quantity versus quality, where the Complete Saga clearly harbors the greater quantity of content. But that's not to say that both games are still extremely qualitative in their own way, which they are. The quality lies in the respective experience of each game, and regardless of how they were balanced, sometimes it comes down to how likely a player is to return to the world of the game. For any video game, this is the importance of replay value. And despite being a simpler game, the replay value within LEGO Star Wars the video game game has the ability to be greater than LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga. One way to determine the replay value of a good LEGO game is to examine how its objectives are organized. So to look back at the levels Mos Espa Pod Race and Gunship Cavalry one more time, which I know I've established the difficulty of, I want to focus once more on that drawback of the original versions for these two levels, which require a greater measure of skill to complete when compared to the revised versions in the Complete Saga. The danger of this is that for the intended age range of players, it's very possible to get stuck on these levels for a long time. From personal experience, I remember being stuck on Mos Espa Pod Race for years, and with Gunship Cavalry, it was an adult relative that beat that level for me, and even then, it was so challenging that the intensity of that final section had my entire family watching it unfold as if it were a sports game. And even though I wasn't the one to personally beat it the first time I saw the completion of the level, it was still vicariously rewarding for me. The point I want to make here about the increased difficulty is that it warrants a certain challenge to be taken on as many times as necessary until the player can complete the level. The game was designed to eventually be accomplished, and the challenge isn't impossible. So when you do reach that point of completing these levels, it's a very rewarding accomplishment, especially when the takeaway is knowing how to beat the level the next time around, and knowing that you can beat it the next time around. And those who beat it the first time around are bound to return time and again to seek out the challenge for that rewarding experience. Now, I've already established that the Complete Saga contains both original levels and revised versions of Mos Espa Pod Race and Gunship Cavalry, and I've also established that the placement of the original levels placed as one-off stages offers a completely different balance. And off of that, this is also why the placement of these levels does not offer that same rewarding experience as the video game. Because when the urgency of completing those original levels like in the video game is removed, completing them as one-off stages like in the Complete Saga do not make them feel as critical. Of course, you'll need to complete them for 100%, but when you can do that at any time in the game, it's very likely players will find more interesting challenges that take precedence within the quantity of the Complete Saga's content. In contrast, there's a greater spotlight on the original levels of Mos Espa Pod Race and Gunship Cavalry in the video game, and with a more challenging simplicity, there is a greater replay value for completing the challenge itself regardless of the game's quantity, simply because a significant chunk of primary content in the video game lies behind the gate of both Mos Espa Pod Race and Gunship Cavalry. So once again, it's thanks to the original Mos Espa Pod Race and Gunship Cavalry that the video game continues to possess unique aspects that contribute to its own replayability experience despite containing half as much content as the Complete Saga. However, the video game's most prominent unique aspect not shared with the Complete Saga is perhaps the greatest reason why there is still such a high replay value in the video game. Now, it's my understanding that the function behind a central hub of any video game is to provide access to a variety of the game's content such as levels or in-world information. And from my experience, it is my belief that a central hub goes above and beyond these functions when they also act as a playground for players to enjoy the game outside of the intended exploration in the levels. Almost every LEGO game has succeeded in creating this atmosphere for their central hub, and it was LEGO Star Wars the video game which first set this standard. Players can choose between 56 different characters in the game to roam in and out of Dexter's Diner. The most fun to be had is participating in the fights, or even starting them. And because there are so many characters with different abilities to play as, players can challenge themselves by doing battle with the more dangerous characters while using less capable ones. In fact, it's entirely possible to code in all the main villains before unlocking any heroes beyond the first level for those interested in a challenging survival. I'm sure player-created challenges in the central hub can be had in the Complete Saga as well. However, the Mos Eisley Cantina hub in the Complete Saga is not nearly as spacious as Dexter's Diner in the video game. And while that might sound like a small nitpick about space, the difference in size and layout creates two drastically different playgrounds between these two games. In many cases, the smaller layout greatly reduces the player's options for what their weaker character can do to take on a stronger one. The obvious reason for a smaller hub in the Complete Saga is because that game focuses more on expanding the game's content within the episode levels. Players of the Complete Saga are more likely to explore the greater volume of level objectives, which is where the heart of the Complete Saga's replayability lies. But when this finite amount of objectives are complete, these players are left with a central hub that offers very little to be engaged by, if any at all. It is then more likely that once a player reaches 100% in the Complete Saga, they won't feel the need to play the game game until they become interested in playing from 0% again, which then involves completing the same excessive volume of challenges. In contrast, the space and layout of the central hub for LEGO Star Wars the video game offers a more engaging playground for players to continue roaming about long after the game has been completed. And if you don't believe me when I say that parking lot outside Dexter's Diner isn't inspiring on its own, just watch my latest animation as of the release of this video. In conclusion, it's because of the unique features in LEGO Star Wars the video game that I believe this game can still go head to head with LEGO Star Wars the Complete Saga when we're talking about which game provides a quality experience. They both do just that. But the differences in these games, as evident in as little as the minor details like Padme's weapon or Clone's central hub behavior, is what changes the balance of these two games' experience, and it's the tip of the iceberg to greater aspects that truly set the video game and the Complete Saga apart. The most glaring difference in content quantity is often where many dismiss comparing these two games, but I think upon closer inspection, and if we are to compare these experiences, the balance of challenge featured in these respective titles is what allows for both of them to be rewarding experiences. The Complete Saga succeeds in providing bountiful content, while the video game succeeds in being the older and simpler but less forgiving adventure. And when it comes to revisiting that rewarding experience time and again, I think this is where LEGO Star Wars the video game takes the lead. Because as we get older, the harder the challenge, especially in a LEGO game, the better the game's replayability value will stand the test of time. The same can be said for what we make of the game ourselves beyond its intended objectives. That's what LEGO Star Wars the video game and all those hours of running around Dexter's Diner allowed us to do. Because even when the game is over, not only is this hub the most inviting for us to return to for more, we get to make whatever we want to of all those features unique to the video game. And if not in the video game itself, perhaps beyond it. This is what makes LEGO Star Wars the video game so special for so many of us, and as it turns 20 years old this year, I hope that I've been able to provide a thorough analysis for some of its most unique features that allow this game to be of that same qualitative experience as the other LEGO Star Wars games, if not even more. Once again, I still think the first 3 LEGO Star Wars games are all special in their own way, and while I'm certain both the original trilogy and the Complete Saga have been inspiring as well for all of us, this is my case for LEGO Star Wars the video game being just like the others and more. After all, it's the one that started it all. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.